Alright. I was going to stick on these rubber pieces that show the type of tire, Nitto tire. It seems real cheesy to me, gluing it on with super glue basically. So I'm just going to go with what I know, and that's paint marker. I've done this before with paint marker on motorcycle tires, so I'm going to do it on this. So I've taken brake clean, cleaned it off really well, and that's why it's discolored here. It's real flat colored here and nice and shiny here because it's got tire shine all over. So these paint markers, they're oil-based paint markers I got off of Amazon. Good reviews, and people have used them on tires, and they're actually for tires, T-Y-R-Es. Anyway, of course they come from another country. But anyway, I got 4 of them for like $5 for 2. So I ended up getting 4 paint markers. That should be more than enough. All I'm going to do is Nitto, 4 letters there, and then I'm going to put the NT555R2. That's all I'm going to do. So put a link in the description about the markers. Oil-based paint, oil-based ink, it says. Paint marker, but that's ink. Anyway, so let's do it. Okay, already what I've noticed about these paint markers, just by shaking them up here and getting ready to start pushing to bring the paint forward onto the tip, I noticed that the tip has 2 different settings. You can flip this around and it'll have a more of a finer point. So you got a blunt point, and then you have more of a fine tip. That was not exactly advertised on here, but just so you're aware. I don't know, I think I'm going to use the blunt tip. I can always use one of these with a fine tip and just leave it that way, which I may do that. And of course you can always flip it over while it's wet, while it's full of paint. So. Alright, here we go. Any that I go over, like right there I just went over, once it dries, you can take a razor blade and just kind of scrape it right across. Because the part that I'm painting is actually down lower than the surface of the tire. And I'll probably put a few coats on there. let this dry, and all the places I went over the lines, that's where I'm gonna rake out with a razor blade. And it'll look a lot better than it does now. All right, so it's dried up enough to the touch. So all I'm gonna do now is scrape off the high spots. It's not completely dry there. Scrape off the high spots, which are on the sidewall. Okay, so that's after I scraped it, but it was still a little wet right there because it was pretty thick. So I'll let that dry and then just go scrape along there again, but it looks pretty good. I may end up going over it with another coat. And then this over here is, I'm gonna let it dry a little bit longer and then I'll scrape it. All I do is just take the razor blade, just scrape it like that, knock it off, knock the excess off. All right, not too bad. All right, I'm gonna do the rest of the wheels now. I think it's probably a good idea to do these, to paint these wheels with the tire laying horizontally. That way you can get the paint to pool a little better. And on top of that, just taking your wheels off, I don't know, even once a year, probably a good thing. So you can take a look at everything that's going on behind those wheels that you normally don't see. Check bolts, check nuts and bolts, and make sure everything looks good. Best to do it in wintertime before you have to screw up riding time or driving time, you know.